Hey there, everybody, this is Wayne D, and you're at WayneD.com. This is John Christinack. John started sending swings online back in 15, about once or twice a year, and then last year he came down to Florida to see me, and now he's visiting again. And here's the swing that he showed up with. So let's take the down the line view here, and we'll just the one on the he was here for 2 lessons. I think it was a couple hours one day and an hour the next. So from the first swing to the last one's over here on the left, and it really is a stop and go swing where it just shows what we were trying to work on here. So, and I'll show you why. So let's take a look in the takeaway. This is a problem takeaway for John. It's always been the same type of maneuver where the left arm and shoulder tighten up and roll out. So the grip rolls away from the plane and the club head turns under the plane. And that's just a problem in the takeaway. So I think John was here for 3 hours. A lot of times it would take 3 hours to fix this because it's so ingrained. And if you go back and look at John's swings from years past, he pretty much does the same thing. Now he manages to fix it up a little bit and get it on plane more or less at P3, but the way the club is maneuvering and the way the right arm is moving here, we know where that's going. It's going to go across. So in this case, it gets across, the left wrist gets a little cupped. So you can see John's got a fairly strong grip by the differential between the wrist angle and the face angle. But that's okay. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of a strong grip. So, but the pattern of the swing as the club head goes behind him and under his arms and then up across, when it starts down, you can see the issue is that the arms are narrowing and the club will not kick back enough. So you can see the club head from where it is going to go up this way. Now it's not a total disaster because it didn't really go a lot more over in front of him. But you know that if the club is steep later in the swing, like it is here, it's going to have to flatten off, and it could drop underneath him, although in this case it doesn't. But what does happen is that the overall pattern of motion here, where the left arm rolls out, is encouraging his left side to push forward, and it ends up taking him off the hip box line here, and he jams himself up. So the right arm is getting a little bit too bent up here. It's kind of narrow. So you know we're going to head for some width, try to get some width out of this thing. And you can see John's not a bad player. He can play a little bit because he's got good control of that shaft. Keeps it between his arms even with the difficulty in the backswing positioning. So here's the stop and go, and of course this is after going over this many times over the course of a few hours. So you can see the posture's a little different. We got the posture a little bit more up. Got the handle up. And then as we go back, what we're going to focus on is trying to get the hands not to trigger this swing with this outward movement. So here's the back swing. So here's the rehearsal. Well, this is a stop and go, so this is an actual takeaway. So you can see We're trying to not let the club raise up, which is one of the reasons why I like it a little bit taller at address. I don't mind a low hands address. It's a comfortable feeling for a lot of people, as long as it doesn't do what John is doing here, which I see a lot, which is one of the reasons why I would suggest, just in general, to have the grip more pointed up just above the belt buckle, where that would be probably here 3 degrees higher. So if we look at this line, this is probably right up at that point, 56. So the handle goes in toward the body just a hair. Club head tries to stay out. Anytime you see a right arm lift up and cross, we like to get a little bit more external rotation. So I would like to see the face, in John's case, a little more open like he did there. So as he gets it up to P3, we're going to see the shaft now is a little flat, but he's going to point this club more off to the left on plane. And these are just general shape feelings, just a pattern feeling. And then if you look at the legs, you can see there's more depth in the right hip right here. So a number of things that are better about this movement. And then when he starts down, if you can just get it started with the lower body and simplify everything, watch where the club comes down. So there's a similar position. You can see how much steeper this club is here. Now in a real swing like this, he's going to have more rotational pull on it, so he's dragging it behind his hands. But this position, if he does it in a full, if he can get that in a full swing, it should really lend itself to having the club come in on a better angle. You can definitely see, very importantly here, how the hands are much, much closer to his body coming down. So that's the back view. Now let's go over to the face-on view. So here's the stop and go from face-on, and then we'll go back to the original face-on swing. So this is the one that the left arm, you're going to see the motion here. This is how the club is starting. So what I like to do here is suggest, again, I like to suggest that the setup be a little bit more relaxed in the elbows. We don't quite get that, although you can watch him on the left here. You see the right arm. So this is the idea. This is what I like. A lot of times when the club rolls out like John does, the arms just get a little too tight, and the shoulders and trunk don't turn. So when you look at John's trunk, you're going to see this club move almost a foot away from the ball with no rotation in the upper trunk at all. So all of that movement is done with the hands, and then the left arm rolls out. So here, it doesn't quite keep that home plate look that I like, but if we watch the takeaway, one of the things you can look for is we want to see the club stay in between the arms longer. So as it gets over here, just past his foot, we'll see where the club is. So you're trying to get that feeling that the club's going to stay in between the arms and that the chest is going to move. So if you look at the two stripes on the shirt here, watch them. They're going to actually move in the takeaway. If he had that same shirt on right here, they wouldn't have gone anywhere. So now we're stretching this out for width. Now I like the wrist cock factor here a little better than this one. Hard to do everything at once, but I definitely want him to be focusing on width. So watching this one, you can just tell that the upper right arm is pulling behind him and not doing that as much here on the left. Then you can see he gets it a little behind him and then pushes it back out. So this is where we'd like to see it. And now the big deal here is, and I see this sequence issue all the time, when the right arm is narrow and pulling back, it actually pushes the upper body forward. And then the rib cage is tipping over top of the pelvis momentarily. It doesn't take much, and that's a little bit out of sequence. So he's going to get a little bit in front of this. So what we want to see from here in a stop and go is we want the upper body to stay put for a moment, want the lower body to move, and we don't want that head going past the ball. So you can see now he's got his nose a little behind it, definitely a little wide coming in, but again, can't work on everything all at once. So we're just trying to get a nice, what is normally called a one-piece takeaway, but I just think it's a movement back that involves the upper trunk, more extension. He does a nice job of keeping the hips in the box. So like I said, John's a pretty good player. He does some good things. The hard part here is going to have that feeling of right arm extensor action, left arm stretch. We want to keep this thing moving away from the head in the backswing so the right arm doesn't do that as much. So when he does these stop and goes, wherever the max point in a stop and go is, that's where you're going to swing or past that. So when you fix it like this, the next time you do this, you want to go back and you just want to arrive at that point and not go back that much further. Now he does a nice job in this stop and go of not adding backswing before the start down, so he gets started with his legs, gets that lateral movement going where his head stays pretty close to back where it was. So if we draw the head, you can see it's not going to be real forward. Stretch it back a little bit and then look at the head nicely in the box. So this is just one way to improve the pivot motion. There are other factors going on here, but to get that takeaway fixed up would be a big step for John and get that sequence going. So using the trunk on the takeaway, getting the width in the backswing, and then trying to sequence a little better would be a good goal.